Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about Bury Me in a Free Land, written by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. Now, before we go into the summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. This poem by Harper is, it's heavy. It's a tough poem. It talks about slavery, and this author, this woman who's talking about slavery, and how she wants nothing to do with it, and that she's not afraid of dying, but when she dies, she doesn't want to die in a land where there's slavery. Now, I'm not going to go into stanzas or word structure or the makeup of the poem. I just want to talk about what's written in it, what are the general ideas presented within it, so that maybe you could explore it yourself and read the lines and read the stresses within the poem. This is just to get a summary and idea of what she's talking about here and what she's trying to say, basically. So the poem throughout it, what you get is that she talks about the fact that pretty much she doesn't talk about death, but you can see the way that she's writing, that she's not afraid of dying, and that when she dies, she has no fear. Well, her only regret would be that to be buried in a place where the slavery exists, in a place where slaves are still being beaten, being killed, being their rights being taken away, their children being taken away. In a place where, because she says, like, if her grave is near where slaves exist or where people of any kind are being oppressed, she won't be able to rest in peace. She won't be able to, be free. Because, like, when a person or a spirit, I guess, goes to the grave and they're unhappy and they have to literally now rest in a place where there's this horror, where there's this, where there's no justice, where there's this blood spilling every day and night. That spirit, from her perspective or from the poem's perspective, that spirit will never be at rest. And she tells us that it doesn't matter what country. It doesn't matter if she's buried, in a rich place or in a prosperous place, or if she's buried in a lowly place, in a place where there's no prestige, in a place where there's no honor. That doesn't matter to her. Some people, that matters a lot. Some people really care about where they're buried. If they're buried, next to the sea, or if they're buried, next to a warm and welcoming place. Some people want to be buried on a hill. Some people want to be buried near scenery, which, from my perspective, I don't really makes much sense to me, because you're dead. I mean, you're not going to be sitting on your graves and watching the scenery and thinking about life. When you're dead, you're dead. I don't think you're conscious and waking up from your plot of land where they laid your body and thinking about reality. But she's saying from, she's living, because she's the one that wrote this poem. She's living, she's existing, and she's thinking about death, and she's saying, I don't want to be in any country where slavery exists, where people, well, specifically African Americans and Black people in America, but in general, this poem gives you the sense of anywhere where there is slavery, when people have masters, where people are being killed for no reason, where there's no due process for certain individuals, where people are losing their children. And she really talks about the horrors of slavery and the shadow of darkness of slavery, and the sad things that appear to slavery. And she said she doesn't care about her honor, she doesn't care about her prestige, she doesn't care about anything about herself. The only thing that she cares about is that when she dies, that she dies in a country where there is no slavery. And it's a very fascinating poem. It's a very straightforward poem. It tells you that bury me in a free land, a land where there is no sorrow, where there is no bloodshed. And she does go into the dominant culture within America when she's writing this, or the dominant culture that exists in America when she's writing it. She really compares the dominant culture to injustice and the horrors of it and the brutality of it and the lack of kindness and empathy and sympathy and things like that. And she even says that, if you think about the slave masters in America during the time of slavery in America, it takes a certain kind of individual to kill people, abuse them, tie them up, chain them up, kill them when they want to, have them rape each other or they raping them. There's so much that goes into slavery. It's beatings, rapings. It's because when a human being is another human's property, the human being can do whatever he or she wants to the property. And she really talks about those horrors. And honestly, to this day, in the 21st century, there are horrific things and unspeakable things that probably happened in the time of slavery that we'll never know of. So, if you ever read the book, The Freedom Business, one thing that was very shocking for myself when I read that book is that there's a slave who bought his freedom, and then he bought slaves to help them be free. And some of the slaves that he bought to help them be free, they went back to their masters. And there were a lot of slaves like that, slaves who were broken to the point where escape would never be on their minds, rebellion would never be on their minds. In fact, they would exist to point out rebellions and disobedience to their masters, so that their masters could be kind to them, so that their masters wouldn't, abuse them. So in fear, you can get devotion and loyalty. So there's a lot that goes into it. There's several layers. I think slavery is like an onion. You can peel it layer by layer and figure out all the horrors and all the atrocities that took place during the era of slavery. So she talks about, she's fine with dying, but when she does die, she wants to be buried in a free land. There's more stanzas and more lines in the poem that go into specifics that describe the dominant culture at the time, that describe what the people are going through at the time, or the slaves are going through in America during the time of slavery in America. But that's the general idea. Our author doesn't want to be buried in a land where slavery exists, where horrors exist, where people are being abused, where people their kids are being taken away from them. Their daughters are being sold to the highest bidder, and they have no rights. Now, in terms of deeper meaning, in terms of analysis here, I don't think that the author of the poem, her wishes will ever be fulfilled. No matter where you are buried in the world, no matter where you die in the world, that land will have a form of slavery. I mean, we are in the 21st century. Worldwide, countries, pretty much all countries don't recognize slavery. But the things like slavery, I think there's more people in slavery nowadays than ever. When you think about things like the sex trade, all types of human trafficking within the world. Human trafficking is massive worldwide right now. There's sex trafficking. People are trafficking children. People are trafficking men. There's the organ trade. People are abducting people, cutting them up for kidneys, organs, hearts, whatever you name it, you call it, on the black market. So a lot of people around the world are still being kidnapped, are being taken away from their homelands, brought to other places to put in sex work, to be put to work, to be abused, to be taken advantage of. And it still happens to this day. And that's one thing that scares me and that alarms me and that terrifies me, because human beings, when it comes to making a dollar, when it comes to making wealth, a lot of human beings are not afraid of abusing others, taking advantage of others, and doing it all for money and wealth and power. Because, slavery still exists around the world, and human trafficking is one thing that I honestly, maybe the experts know how to stop it or how to hinder it, but it is something that it's everywhere. It's in the United States, it's in Europe, it's around the world. human trafficking is modern day slavery, and it's a difficult and tough slavery to deal with because the way that human trafficking work, it's not specifically done in chains and keeping people in captivity. I feel like most of it is played by mind games where young girls get abducted and they're told what to do, and they're people, their abductors use threats, use abuses, rip them away from their families, put them into sex trade, put them into all types of different situations, and that's hard to get out of, and for a lot of people who are in human trafficking, what happens is they take the woman or whoever they abduct to a country where they can't speak the language, so they can't call for help, and a lot of times they don't know how to call for help or if help is even available to them. So in one case, I guess government slavery is over. Worldwide, it's pretty much over. But in terms of slavery in general and human trafficking and in the black market, that still exists, and it's getting worse every day. So I guess the poem is a nice ideal. The poem shows you the horrors of slavery and how our narrator or our author doesn't want to be buried in a slave allowed land, and from the government side, that may be true, she might have gotten her wish, but from a global side and from is it still happening side, slavery is still happening and human trafficking is everywhere, in modern countries, in first world countries, in third world countries, in developing world countries, and places all over the world. It's still going on, and it's not just restricted to people of color. It could be anybody that gets abducted and pushed into human trafficking against their will. So yeah, that's my summary of this poem. It's probably not the most I guess heartwarming or happy poem or topic for today. But that's my look at it. That's my perspective on it. That's what I think about it. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment. And I'll see you guys in the next video.